mill, and which isn't all that much money.
I didn't mean just this, all the
Pardon?
work you've done,
Oh, well,
not
anyway.
just this.
Oh, okay, thank you. What I worry about, I just worry sick, of what's likely to happen, you know, about a year ago, when we had, they have one bathroom in there, it's a big one that they use for invalids. And the concrete or the pipes underneath the concrete were eroded and leaked. So water came up through the concrete into the walls, and we ended up putting in about, I think it was $107,000 for that project. And you just don't know. I understand that all of the bathroom, or all the rooms that have, they all have their own bathrooms and toilets, and all the toilets are leaking. They're just out of date. My gosh, you don't know what's going to happen. It's scary. It's just spooky. So anyway, with luck, somebody will come in with. I want to tell you this too. We have our letters of intent that we're trying to negotiate. The negotiating position everybody's taken, Broadroad Health Center and the district board, is that the entity takes over, they're responsible for all liabilities. That includes the approximate $50,000 in registered warrants that we owe you payment on your investment. And so that's included in there, all of it. All of the liabilities now with the hospital, Broadwater Health Center's liabilities and our $50,000 in warrants come to almost $2 million. So we would say to the entity that's buying, okay, you give us that, you pay the entities, you pay it off, and at that point, it's $2 million or 1.7 or 1.8, whatever it is. Then we will sell you, for that price, we will give you the hospital building. All right, we don't want the building. We don't want to hang on to that building and be liable for it. And if we don't get rid of that building, I'm afraid it's going to end up gathering weeds around it, because it's good for a hospital building. It's not used for much else. If you drive through Montana, you'll see abandoned school buildings and abandoned hospital buildings here and there, that broken windows and weeds going up there. And we don't want to end up with that. So we want somebody to take it. Now, so if they could do that, and we would say, so you take all the liabilities, we'll sell you the building for $1 plus other valuable considerations, and that'd be fine. That's the board's feeling anyway. There's other people who say, well, we got to have that's terrible. It would be politically unwise to sell it for $1. So the alternative, I guess, would say, okay, we say to the entity, you give us the $2 million, we'll pay off the bills and give you the loss. So then we have it say, we could say political cover gives it, says we sold it for $2 million. Wow, hey, good deal. You get a building that's falling apart and you got $2 million for it. Either way, whoever buys it, they're going to put up a certain amount of cash, we hope, for all liabilities, and that's it. And I think it'll work. At the end of that term, most of them that talk, St. Peter certainly did, and another entity we've had serious discussions with, they kind of indicate that they would use the building and do the minimum amount of maintenance on it that they would have to do to keep it open. And then if it's working out and it's paying off, and they're making a profit, doing a good business, then they would build their own building, a new building, which seems ideal. It's just a win-win situation for everybody, I think. I'm really enthused about it. I hope it works. I really do. And who knows? It's terribly expensive, the negotiations. Luckily, the district has not incurred any liability, any legal or attorney fees, none. So that's great. The hospital, Broadwater Health Center, has incurred about $90,000 in legal bills in doing this. There was an outfit in Stroudwater, based in Atlanta, Georgia, who specializes in that type of handling those type of things, and they estimated $200,000 in costs. So I guess they're not out of line, but it is spooky. It's very spooky. So I guess that's about all I have to say. If anybody wants anything or could fill you in, I've been involved in most of the from the start, all the negotiations that are going on. And, anyway, I'm just really thrilled. I think we're gonna have a good hospital. I do. Trust her. We're probably gonna have a couple of days. With this, there's one entity that we would love to have come in. All right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
you,
you.
and for all your work
You're welcome.
through the years.
So anyway, hope you don't have to give us any money.
Hope what?
You don't have to give us any money at all. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, you.
There they are. That's the second time this week.
County Budget Analysis Department, CIP submittals.
I put the CIPs on, I know that's something you've been working on, Daryl. We haven't seen too many, and we need those for Jerry.
I've got a couple back.
Oh, good.
I think Wayne and Brandon submitted a few, and they knew that there was more to come. Let's see, who else? Oh, Mike Myers submitted some building stuff. So Mary's working on hers. Hers will probably be the biggest, most likely.
And Allison,
I did get some from Allison.
Allison just sent us one today, $500 on that drill.
Oh, okay.
And then there was another 1,000 there for something. I can't remember what it was.
Oh,
I didn't get it in with the report yet, but I did print off the CIP report so we could just kind of go through them.
And one thing we're talking about is not necessarily the budget CIPs, but the specifics to give to Jerry for his work. What physical capital and equipment does each department have?
Yeah, I haven't heard on anything from anybody. I saw that last week and nobody said anything, so I don't know.
We've got a few that have
Okay.
gone, come in.
So I just ran off both, all the, it's cash budget, the expenditure budget, and the actual cash report, so we could see what's in the CIPs. I know I did hear from Allison. Mary just gave me a verbal and sent me a quick email and said she doesn't plan on anything in her quote CIP fund, but she doesn't have one. Well, she's thinking of road, weed, mosquitoes.
Right.
She didn't give me anything. She doesn't plan on anything at this point. She hasn't already spent this fiscal year. So I've gotten a lot of people, nope, don't have anything, don't have anything. I know I talked with Brandon Friday, and we've talked about their vehicle and their weapons and some of those CIPs. So he goes, already got about, we're on .20 or something with his budget, so
Yeah.
they've already made some changes.
and that generator is still in question. I'm not sure where that's gonna fall in.
That one,
And I'm assuming that we'll include it in that.
yeah, and Mike got some things brewing, but he didn't have any numbers to give me, put in here yet. So this is just kind of a blank template so we can check, have, not have, waiting for, so we know where we're looking.
Okay.
Was just the purpose for me today. For those funds, because like I said, last year, I don't think anybody submitted anything. So I had to do budget amendments for those that did spend this year. And I don't think there's too many more in here that I have to cover, but I'll have to check as we go towards the end. The expenditures are first. And then what, if they've asked for any revenues. And cash is the last page, so you can see what's sitting in the CIPs themselves. And the only one that's in the negative is the detention center, and I'm working with Bob on that one.
Brandon's aware of that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, and that was, he couldn't remember what it was for, and it goes back to when there were separate funds, the cadaver cooler, the grinder, whatever that tied to the detention centers when that was done, versus coming out of the maintenance of the public safety budget. So this has been carried forward a couple of years.
So,
Okay.
So
and
we're
just
just gonna
in the
write it
recent-
off.
Yeah, recent light of our computer thing that's going on, it's something we probably need to consider
Yeah,
for our CIPs.
yeah.
Start working on that, so when the time
Talked with
comes-
Josh,
Yeah.
and we have 24 computers in the county's purview that all are running on the old Windows 2010.
How many?
Is it 10?
24. Now, this is the operating software for the Windows.
Right, OS.
That does include the computers themselves. And that list, some of the departments have already got their computers this year. So.
With money they already had.
With
in their
money they already
funds.
had in their budgets.
Okay,
But Doug and I kinda were talking about this. He had a quote from Josh when he was looking at his two computers and they wanted like 1,000 apiece. Well, he went for the same straight Dell, went out online and got right from Dell two computers for 1,000. About half of what DIS was gonna cover, but what we kind of threw at him, you know, DIS will make sure you have everything you need with, I don't know if Dell's doing that, with all the software, hardware that goes with it. So Doug was still gonna work with Josh more on that one.
okay.
You know, I think it's great. It was the same Dell when we looked at the list that DIS could get. So I'm not sure, like I looked before for myself, they have just a standard price. They can't go and hunt the internet for special sales or something that another vendor might have and give you at a different price.
Right.
So there's still some work on that one.
So
But-
are you looking at, Josh, maybe buying, us buying these computers and have DIS come in and do all the program work with it?
Which we kind of do anyway. We kind of are a partnered group. DIS and, well, DIS does it all. So yeah, DIS would take care of all of it.
Okay.
Order the computers. We ordered our printer cheaper than what DIS quoted us, but they still support it and helped us install the software. So he would just need to get with Josh and them and verify this quote, because they, you know, they can't help it, you know, just because they're a dealer, they still have their time and their effort involved versus just ordering straight from whatever. Kind of like going to Amazon, you know, you can get vendors and you can pick from your choice of vendor to get them cheaper, but have to read the fine print, because there might be something that they aren't providing that maybe DIS covered. Just won't know till the time comes.
On this computer, you probably got my email. I was interested in buying a computer from GIS. And I have some money in my budget current level for that. Half of that's my federal EMPG grant, and the other half is match. When I talked to and communicated back and forth, they're gonna remotely install that and then put that software in and stuff like that. I've kinda looked at these other options. I think my choice, if it's okay with the commission, I'd either go with DIS, because they will, make sure it's done right. I'm not a real high-tech person, but buy it through them, then they'll ship it down here, and I'll plug it in, then remotely install, take everything off my old computer, put it in there, do all that. If you buy it off site, buy it from another vendor, you still have that $85 an hour charge for DIS to do all that. So I don't know. I just figured if I got it in my budget, I've been kind of saving money for that. I'm gonna try to do it before June 30, get invoice for that. Just kind of my thought.
And I think that's important to bring out. Thank you.
I have no idea how much it would cost and stuff like that for them to. But of course, we're getting the software and everything for, you buy something from Dell, you may not have the professional software that you need for this entity, local government.
Because like I told Doug, I said, some of us have to be able to interface with Black Mountain,
Yeah.
because that's the biggest part of our jobs. And I don't know if he thought about that with this, although I just don't
They would
know.
need all that,
And, you know, if he's gotta buy, I think he's gotta buy a total of 6.
yeah.
So he's worried about the cost. If he can get it cheaper and maybe buy the software from DIS, take everything that we need, I just don't know how that would impact his bottom line.
No, I don't know, I can speak for myself.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable going with them. Then they'll
I'm with
have-
you on that one.
They'll have all the spyware and all that security
Yeah.
stuff, the proper amount. If you buy off, you may buy something from McAfee or something, but it may not be what they want for their system, for their server. And we're always being attacked, local government's always been attacked. I get emails every day, somebody wants me to open up Well, when it's attached, but something that's related to EMS or emergency management, DES or something, but if I don't know them, I just delete it. They're just trying to keep our system constant.
And I know for the department heads, they probably need to get the software at best, the Windows software, especially if they need to work with Black Mountain to pull up reports, to approve time cards, get their budget reports and things of that nature. They all have to link into the cloud to get those. So if they're not gonna be supported, I'm not sure what will happen to their access to Black Mountain if it's not the same version. It might limit them.
Did you say there's 24 computers that are
That-
using
That's what Josh said.
the Windows 10 or the old?
The old Windows 10, that
Old
have the old
Windows
Windows 10.
Talking
He didn't look at
Windows
computers,
Right.
that's a separate list, it's just that Windows 10 software hardware program
Okay.
that Black Mountain says there's no support after 2020.
So we
Have
have
it.
24 of them that are not, that are on Windows 7 right now.
Mine's one of them, Windows 7 Professional,
That's what I have now.
yeah.
Because it's actually
I
user-friendly.
just wonder how
Yeah.
much, you know, if you went and bought a bunch of these, how much is it gonna cost you to have DIS? Basically revamp all the software to fit the system with Black Mountain.
Good question.
Is that something Black Mountain could answer for us? Or does it make any difference to them?
It don't make any difference to them,
It's all gonna be pretty
it'll all be
much up
something we have to work
Josh.
out with DIS.
So the list we have here this is from Josh at DIS, and this is, not all our computers, just those that are expiring or old, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And the highlighted. And a couple of those, I know like health services, they got grants to cover theirs.
right, they're not on here.
They're under the sheriff, under the tab sheet that was with the sheriff and others.
Oh, okay,
So there was a second sheet.
I didn't look at the second sheet.
Yeah, there was
Okay.
another tab that they had done.
Okay,
So there's a second page, and there's several at the sheriff's office, that have the old Windows 7. A couple of deputy desks, too. So we thought, depending on if it's a dispatch type of situation, could that be something 911 could cover budget? So those are
right,
some things too, when we get down to that, we'll have to ask Josh and Brandon. Not Josh and Brandon, but Brandon and Wynn, which computers they really need to update. And we thought at the same time, the software, if you're gonna do one, just do the whole sweep. Those computers are okay, then it's just the software.
right, right.
Mhm.
Yeah, some of these, computers are not that old.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
So you can just update the OS and.
I think Doug was gonna get his ordered, or has ordered his computers to start for this fiscal year.
And he has he has an account to pay for those, though.
Yeah, he was
so-
gonna use his records preservation,
Right.
like maybe for Ann's and the one in the back
Okay,
for the recording. I think that's what he said Friday he was looking at, but he has to be careful with that one, cause I can't use it for treasurer. So, yeah, he's got $50,000 in his records preservation. He said, so a couple computers won't break me. So that's what he was doing with those, and I think he was gonna try to get them ordered this fiscal year,
okay.
but I'm not positive of that.
And since he has the money in his budget, that's a little bit different than all the accounts that are looking for financial help to get those.
Yeah.
I think that's where we need to put our concentration, is
Yeah.
those.
And so far, I haven't heard too much from anybody, so we have our work cut out for us.
Well, I think if we can update the software, some of these newer computers, that we can phase in
Mm-hmm,
over the next couple of years, rather than take
Yeah.
a big hit each
yeah,
time. And then work out our CIP so that they have that money.
mm-hmm,
That'd be a better way to approach that.
Maybe we can address this next week, as maybe our final step for this part of the budget, anyway.
Yeah.
What are those things we get an idea for today?
You know,
Okay. And to put together a long-range plan so that those who are still in the waiting, know where they're
Yeah.
at. We can plan on that. Debbie, did you get a copy of the trust board budget?
No, I did not.
I'll give you mine with all the chicken scratch, if you just give me back a copy.
Okay.
Um,
I think DES has $6,000 in there for CIP.
There's, you know, we budgeted for you and for the sanitarians vehicles in the
And
prior year.
I have an opportunity to apply on these EMPG grants, now work on the state fiscal year. Some of the counties do not spend all their money, so they have, for the next July, August, September, they call those reverted funds. Remember last year, we got some money for the propane, 1,000 gallon, second propane tank up on the hill. It has to be a 50-50 match, and we match that with some CIP, or some, CIP interoperability. I have an opportunity to apply for the six I have now match with the federal six, just apply for that to get 12 perhaps for a vehicle, DES vehicle. So I'll go ahead and apply for that. We won't know until sometime. May not get it, but it's just a shot. Just keep trying to get all the money we possibly can. The logic of that, I talked to Brandon after our meeting down in Three Forks, is they have perhaps a used sheriff's office vehicle that they might have available. And then what the goal of that would be is buy that DES fund, buy that from the sheriff's office, and that would give them more money to go towards one of their newer vehicles that they use in their budget. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I have about 6 saved for that right now in CIP. Maybe we match that, maybe we may not get a full 6, maybe we get 2 or 3 of CIP money, or from EMPG money to match that and help the sheriff's office out. Every dollar counts,
I think that's brilliant,
but
that's excellent.
keep plugging away, trying to get money.
Not too many. We already talked about waiting to replace the dump truck for road, because they have 3. So if they need to, they can just, each of them fill one and one can grade instead of all of them dumping if they needed to. So she's gonna put the insurance money she gets into the CIP and just let it sit there a little bit until which time they think they need it. That's why she just, a couple of different things, she just didn't feel she needed to budget anything yet this year to spend, so.
Yeah, I thought her submittals looked really good,
Mhm.
and they're all separate funds, so it doesn't affect anybody else.
Mm-mm. And I think that's what is confusing people when they see her spending. She's one person spending for 3 or 4 different departments.
Right.
So you gotta know which department she's under or doing business for that day. And so to start making all kinds of innuendos is just not okay. Cause I thought her budget compared to what last year, she was doing pretty good
Yeah,
with what she'd budgeted and where she was at spending. Well, I didn't think it was anything outside the normal. And she was excited because the tonnage fee for tipping was actually down and less, under 10,000 last month. I think it was last month. So we don't have for June yet. She was excited because she felt that showed that some of the pulling stuff out was working. Keep that tonnage down. So
yeah.
the real thing will be when summer's over and everybody's done dumping. But I think it will work.
Yeah,
I'm
it's a
being
sound plan.
optimistic. I'm looking at these at a glance, outside of the salaries, most of the budgets are doing okay, outside of the few requests. I didn't see anything that screamed out at me, other than the ones we've already kind of mentioned and we're working on.
When you put together the preliminary budget numbers, we'll see where the general fund sits.
Yeah.
With all the separate funds, it's hard to know.
Yeah, it's hard to compute it so I
So
can
it's
see
kinda
it dumbed down,
holding Yeah.
for lack of a better word. So I've been pushing, trying to get those numbers done. I told public safety I would try to get theirs done first. I know they're gone, theirs is the hardest. I just haven't crunching some more numbers for their wages because of the bargaining agreements, the stuff that's Brandon told me about. So I'm trying to get that in there, and some of it is new for the deputies, so trying to come up with hours that's equitable. It's hard. So I'm trying to base at least, like if it's a weekend, half of them are on duty for the weekend, depending on graveyard, morning shift. I just don't know yet. I know from the past bargaining agreement, a lot of the standby, only 1 or 2 deputies use it versus possibility of half, depending on the days of the week. Weekends, a lot of dispatch and detention, some use it, others don't. So to get a true gauge of the hours, when not all of them are utilizing that benefit out of their contract, coming up with an amount that doesn't put them in the hole, because I didn't budget enough, is the hard part. So I'm trying to be sure I cover all that realistically. So that's where I'm struggling with getting the budget done for the wages and all that. Because there's, standby went up to $2 for the sheriff's office versus the 1. They're now, if the deputy's on graveyard, they're gonna get 35 cents more an hour than they were. But, you know, who's graveyard, what shift, if they're doing 10 hours, how's their, those are some things in my mind where I go, I don't know how to determine that. So I kinda went on half, half in the day and half at night, trying to come up with that. It seems high, so that might be something else that we have to kind of look at and, But if I don't, then they will be short budget if I don't account for those. So, I don't wanna do that. I did that my first year. I'm not gonna do it again. Because I didn't account for those little things in their budgets, and it did impact them. So, starting to throw numbers in. Get the wages done. Then I'm gonna go get the rest of the budgets. I got a good start Friday. I was working on, almost finishing all the wages this morning. So we're getting going.
Well, to help you, I don't wanna rush the CIP, but there are some updates we can give you for those
Okay.
numbers whenever you guys are ready.
Yeah.
So the victim witness advocate, we had a Board of Crime Control meeting on Friday, and we spent, I kid you not, 5.5 hours on one agenda item. It was the victims grants, which is our victim witness advocate.
Yeah.
We were in a very small small meeting room in the upstairs of Department of Corrections. And, every seat was filled. Seats we did not have were filled. It was a full house. So, long story short, we, are gonna start all over with that grant. So the DOC staff informed the, ARC at the time, so that's the group that reviews the budget, that they had gotten a message from the feds that the funds had been drastically cut. And so they had very little to work with, so what they did is they just slashed programs, because they didn't have any more money. Well, after quite a bit of back and forth, there is more money, and it looks like ours will probably be fully funded. Might be a little bit less than that, it still needs to go through the process, so we can't hang our hat on anything yet, but I would tell you, it looks very likely that we will be fully funded. One thing Corey had said in his comment to the board is that Brooke has been doing a lot of work with White Sulphur Springs, and on a side conversation, he said he expects that that will continue, and maybe we'll need to look at some kind of an interlocal in the future. We might want to use this year as the federal funds could run out at any time. What this does is it alleviates us the burden of having to pay for that position, so it's a good thing that we have this grant. But we might wanna look at a interlocal with White Sulphur Springs, doesn't have to be a lot, but if they are using our services, our citizens shouldn't be paying for Moore County services. So, I would suggest we do that, but I would say for building the budget at this point, to be on the safe side, maybe instead of having that reduced by the 60%, maybe just take 10% off the revenue from that grant. If it is reduced, it wouldn't be by much more than that. Any questions? And I will also share with you, there's also a grant, it is called John R. Justice, so it's, or Burn Jag is what it's called, sorry. And what that does is it funds our drug task forces. So we have 7 in the state, you have to be a region, you have to have at least 5 partners to have a drug task force. We are in one with Lewis and Clark and Gallatin County, I think Mars part of it. And it's called the Missouri River Drug Task Force. That is funded by these JAG funds. JAG has a surplus right now of about a little over $50,000. They're gonna open up a grant for anybody to apply, and it's for anything you need for it's not for personnel. So it's one-time money. It's good for law enforcement, the courts, or drug treatment programs. Well, you know, we've got 2 of those that are looking at new programs, new computer programs, or other capital. So I'm really hoping that our folks will put in for that grant. And the other one is a grant, this is all Board of Crime Control. So the other one is, we have a misdemeanor domestic violence intervention grant. This is also under the victims grant. So victims grants are in different boxes. This particular grant has in it $125,000. We only have one entity that has requested money, it's Ravalli County's Sheriff's Office, and it's $27,000. That means there's just shy of $100,000 in that grant. They're gonna put it back out for an RFP. I would hope that our Sheriff's Office will also be applying for that grant. We certainly have domestic violence issues in Broadwater County. Let's see what we can do to help the budget and also bring some money in for that. So those are just FYIs, but the biggest takeaway is I do think our victims grant for Brooke will be fully funded, and we won't know that for a couple of weeks, but for budgeting purposes, I think we're safe to just go 10% shy. I think we can balance with that.
Put 10% to Corey, 90% the grant, and,
Yeah,
okay.
so if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them on that. And Brooke was there as well, so she knows that the numbers, Corey said, look like, from what the staff said, it looked like she was funded in the last go-around that we redid what you have the letter for, 100%, so same as last year. Corey thought it was 4% or $4,000 less. Staff questioned if that wasn't a difference in the match. So that's why I'm saying 10%, then we're safe. 10% less. So 90%, we're safe.
Okay.
And then the other thing, we didn't quite go through the whole list of recap. One of the things we need to start making some decisions on is the personnel issues that we have. And also PILT. So I just added everything that we know of people want from PILT, and we're at $786,725 so far. So we need to whittle that down. And entitlement share came in, we are going to get a slight bump of $12,457.
Okay.
Debbie, I can shoot you this if you want, you should have it in your email from Chantel. Do you have
I
this?
give out the website, I think, because I didn't have an email
I'll
from
just
her.
well this to you.
Yeah.
How's that, and then you
Yeah.
have it for sure.
'Cause
without
I
having
tend to
to
get
type.
lost on their lists, odds and ends of things, and you or Doug are the only one that I get it from. Unless I go to the website.
Yeah.
Because last I was out there, they didn't have that, so that's good to hear.
So did you get this allocation to the Department of Transportation? That was in the mail today.
Hmm. So is this the regular? Okay, so this is state fuel applications. Nope, this is new.
So it would be more revenue for roads, yeah.
Yeah, this is their state fuel, so this is their regular one, which has been about 61, so that they get 60, so they get 61, that's good. Yeah, $700 more. Okay, I'll make a copy and give it back to you.
Okay.
So, we have a vacancy coming. We have one of our prized employees who's chosen to move to Idaho. Biggest mystery in the world to me, but that's her decision. She's not listening to my pouting about her leaving. But we do have a vacancy coming, so we have some needs. We have a need for GPS, GIS, and talked about that being a position that would essentially be about 26 hours a week, could be a little bit less. We also have a need for a assistant in the finance office. That office is currently targeted, but it's also vastly overworked, understaffed, and that's an area where, especially right now with the targeting, we need to make sure that there's no mistakes that are the result of being overworked and understaffed. That falls on us. District Court would like an additional chunk of hours. I don't see where it's at in the budget, so we can talk about that. Right now, they have an assistant for 16 hours a week, they'd like 24, and an additional 6 weeks of full-time. A couple of issues with that becomes the question of health insurance. So I would suggest if it's if it's a part-time employee standalone, that they don't exceed 30 hours because of the health insurance. If it is somebody who's already a full-time employee that just gives that number of hours to that department, then it's not a big deal. And then the public works assistant, Mary wanted somebody for roughly 8 hours a week. She does have an employee who is currently part-time. She would like to be full-time, and she is brilliant, according to Mary, on some of the work that she's been doing. She was hired to work the sites. She hasn't been needed for that, so she's actually been in the office. I asked Mary if working the sites and then giving her hours to full-time, if she couldn't fill the role of the public works assistant and possibly some of the GIS or GPS work, and she said yes. So that would be spread out between our strongest departments. Solid waste is not our strongest department right now, but it will be in the future. We have a good plan. Road and bridge is a very strong department. Weed and mosquito, they both put money in their CIP every year because they are so strong. Spread that out to this assistant, and I think we could take an existing part-timer, make him a full-time, and get everything we need for public safety. Mary is paid too much to be doing administrative work. I think this is a better way of letting Mary do what she needs to be doing. And I think evidence of that is the fact that she has 400 hours of comp time. So if we did one employee to offset the employee we currently have and make them a full-time employee, part-time GPS, GIS, and part-time finance assistant, that's kind of a wash. Janae's 32 hours a week. This would be that position taken to 40. And I was thinking we needed another employee, but I don't think we do, but we can certainly discuss that. So what do you guys think?
I know that Debbie and Michelle definitely need some help. So,
It's embarrassing when you can't find things because you bury it with more work.
yeah.
And with the spotlight on you, I think we're asking for trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't done anything wrong, but you know, this is not the first time. They've targeted you in the past. Almost seems to be an every year occurrence. And it's probably just because you work most closely with us.
Mm-hmm. It is. I'm your lackey, for lack of a better word.
Now, that's
For
what
some people, in some
say
people's
it's
minds,
not
yeah.
true.
No, I know it's not, but
Right.
that's what they want to say, so.
Oh, and one thing I should back us up, because I think I just made a mistake there. That GPS, GIS is not taking into account the administrative work that is needed to share between sanitation and planning, so sorry about that. So I guess that becomes the question, how do we wanna divvy those hours?
Yeah, I was just thinking about how we're gonna do that, because right now, the person that replaces Janae is still gonna do her work up in district court, right?
Well, that's what we're talking about, we don't know
Yeah.
yet.
And still sanitation,
Right, well, that's to keep me from getting confused, that's why I did this.
right?
So, yeah, what we need is a full-time assistant to planning and sanitation that also does GPS and GIS. Then we need at least 20 hours in the finance office. And then we need time in the district court office. So yeah, that is probably one full-timer, maybe one part-timer like Janaea is right now, or two full-timers.
So can we take the financial office assistant and combine her with the district court person? That's the same person. And then
Good.
take the sanitation planning, GIS, GPS, and work them in with public works, because Mary's gonna have to have the GPS, the GIS for her road work. So can that person be Mary's assistant plus sanitation and planning, or is that too much?
Not enough hours in the day, yeah. And I think Mary's plan makes more sense. She'd like to move Brenda Harris to full-time. She's already got her And then she'd be dedicated to those 4 departments, and 4 big departments. So we could actually just take that out of the
But
picture.
Brenda could also do the GPS, GIS for Mary, right?
She could, or if we get some, depending on if she knows it. If she doesn't, and we hire somebody part-time for the GPS GIS to be a full-time employee with the rest of it, they could actually either work with Brenda or pinch hit with roads and solid waste and mosquitoes.
So if we split the district court in your office, does that give you enough hours?
Yeah, I think 20 hours would be plenty. Right now, we're just so far behind that it's, look at filing and organizing and hole punching and binders.
We'd be essentially switching Janae's current position from sanitation part-time to finance part-time. The rest of it stays the same, if we want.
Is that person gonna need to have, computer and, I think we do that type of work for you?
Possibly, because they could maintain the phone lists, the fuel cards, the cell phones, that while they're not big tasks, they take a little bit of time out of a day. Fuel cards, what was the other one? County car, coordinating the county car, so it's still under Michelle's nice purview with the checkout sheets and that kind of stuff, but just to take care of that we don't have to worry about. It's done, getting the sheets, can help with claims, you know, we get our fair amount of claims ourselves to fill out. Yeah, having a computer would not be a bad idea. I've always thought about having somebody in our office, because eventually, one of my goals is to take all our new hire paperwork and put it on a computer. So when they're hired, they sit down, they fill it in, and we don't have to copy and have them manually fill it out. It's all done in the computer. We can print it, put it in their file, and we're done. So that might be an option later on down the line too.
So-
Computerize some of that.
We need to probably, think you have room in your existing office for that person?
I think there is a desk in our office right now that's just become a place to punch holes and extra stuff I can't get in the binders. That desk is there, there's wiring in there, already on the side of the door. They don't need a huge desk, like that one would work. We just have to kind of maybe rearrange where it's sitting, directional, maybe a little
There
easier.
used to be 2 people in that office, we could do that again. It would be more efficient to move the mail somewhere. Mike Myers has kind of brainstormed some ideas.
And that's the other thing we've been looking at.
But there were 2 in there, so we could put 2 in again.
If we didn't have the mail machine and stuff extra on the wall, there's room in there. The only reason Michelle's office is open right now, most of the time, is people need access to their mail. When I first started, we talked about trying to do like the post office, where we access it from out in the hallway, where we can put it in there from the inside. So if we needed to go, they could still get at their mail. But at the time, we were looking at boxes and things, and it was just way too costly. But we didn't have Mike then, and he's pretty good at coming up with some things, solutions to things. So yeah, that's a possibility, because then it would go in Michelle's office very easily. Because there's more room right in there.
If we got rid of some of the boxes in
Got
our
rid of some of
offices,
our
I mean, there's things we can do.
boxes, Yeah.
It's not a big worry where to put somebody.
So yeah, there's a couple places that would work. Just the filing wouldn't really be an issue, because there's other filing cabinets and places, so they wouldn't like to need much, but just for personal stuff in their desk. And it's very clear this morning, because we had a new hire come in, and it had already gotten buried with other stuff Friday. I couldn't find it at first, so I had to go back and look through, and it had gotten buried with stuff after. And it looks like we're not efficient, and I don't like that. It looks messy. I got too many people coming in thinking, "Oh, too much work." They look at it and they're just in shock, so. But,
So if we did, your office at 20 hours a week or 24, you tell us what you need, and then district court at what the status quo, that is a full-time position with a couple of extra hours if they're needed. If you had somebody for 3 days a week, then that's 40 hours, because plus 16 is 40.
mhm.
If you did 20 hours a week plus 16, that would be 36. And then there'd be 4 extra hours for, seeing where the float needs to happen.
Well, couldn't you guys use somebody to help with your filing
Oh, we
minutes
absolutely
and
need
things, so that,
Yeah.
help with filing.
so
Yeah,
I'm not
I
the
think
only
so.
one?
There's no room on the end of your desk, is there, Mike?
No, there's not.
yeah, if we could, actually, same with Janaea, she's given us 2 hours a week, but those are ended up given to somebody else. But if we had those 4 hours per week for filing,
And once everybody's
Um,
caught up, then it could maybe help Nicole if she needs it.
right?
Or the sanitary, help Sean if he needs it. Which I-
Websites,
Websites.
yeah. Yeah,
I think it could be used. And they could get 40 hours very easily with all of us
yeah.
and not be bored.
Yeah, I know Val wants the extra hours, but when I look at the tax levy requirements report that we have, it is showing a $70,000 deficit for that budget. I think we need to, there's that grant, but I think we need to look at solidifying that budget before we add expenditures to it. And that is one of the few departments that has grown, actually. If you look at the last, 10 years even, maybe the last 5 years for easy,
5,
there
6 years.
is no department that has grown by personnel except for sheriff's office, district court. Are there any others? Solid waste with their new plan, that's different. Every other department has maintained the same number of personnel or shrunk. Public health, mosquito, weed, finance, you guys used to be 3.
Well, and in theory, so has Justice Court, because they don't have their community services coordinator anymore, so they've
Right.
shrunk.
Yeah. Yeah. So to hold district court, I don't think is unfair or a hardship, at this point until we can figure out that budget. That's just my opinion, based on numbers. So, to make sure that I'm not confused, because I can very easily get confused, we're talking right now about adding 8 hours to Brenda Harris for the Public Works Assistant, a full-time employee, 40 hours a week for sanitation and planning administrative assistance, GPS, GIS, also to work with Public Works, and a full-time employee to give 20 hours to the finance office, 4 to the commissioners, and 16 hours as is currently for district court. Is that right? Am I missing any needs that have been expressed?
So where are we at with sanitation with Sean?
If we could get, I don't think we're anywhere yet.
Yeah, because, he's gonna only being part-time, like he really relies on that person to fill that gap.
Exactly. That's why I'm kind of thinking we can't keep it at 32. I think it has to be a full-timer. Personally, I do think that if they can start doing the GPS and GIS, and be more dedicated to that department than bouncing, I think he'll be able to use them to do some of the busy work that he currently does at the contracted rate. I think long-term, we should be able to save money and possibly continue to use him or look at what that looks like in the future. There's so many opportunities right now that are bouncing that we just don't know how those are gonna come together. And that's kind of where I've been at, wondering, he's gonna rack up the money and the hours during the summer, then I expect he'll be backing way off in the winter. I almost think we could even out, but I just don't know yet. But I do think if we could get him a dedicated assistant for those two departments, that it would alleviate some of his busy work that we're paying top dollar for.
Are we thinking that Nicole is going to be doing a little bit more of her own GIS work if they get, you know, the shared GPS between her and sanitation?
I'm kind of thinking from our discussion that we had 2 weeks ago, that this person would be doing the planning GIS as well.
Okay.
She didn't think, I think she said it would be, I didn't put how many hours. She had told us she expected a certain number of hours, it wasn't that many, but I don't remember. Have you ever written down, Debbie? I have it in my notes somewhere, but I don't know where.
It would seem to me that if we got this person for sanitation, that after a while, the Sean's hours are gonna go down somewhat. Especially when you get in the winter, if he can train that person to do all the paperwork, then there's no need to have him come back in the winter when he's not doing any systems or anything. We could, some of his hours could maybe get cut down a little bit. And then once everybody gets caught up with the GPS and the GIS, then those hours are gonna go down too.
Right. I guess part of where I was going with that, my concern with Nicole is that she's wearing too many hats.
That's exactly right.
At the moment, and if she's working too hard to try to cover all those bases. I
think
mean, I
that's-
see it.
Yeah, that's why we've talked about having this person be a administrative assistant to both departments. Because she shouldn't be taking minutes or typing up minutes for the planning board. They don't see her as planner, they see her as secretary. That was so evident last Monday, it was glaring. We gotta help her to be seen as the planner. Also, with the rec board, you know, she's gonna be the administrator of that, she shouldn't be the secretary, but I expect that she'll be adding a couple hours to her day. When she's not in, when she's in the field, we need somebody who can hand out addresses. And that administrative assistant can handle that, can input the addresses, the GPS, the GIS. I don't think she has time to learn it unless she decides she wants to, and she said specifically it was the third thing on her list that she wanted to do, so.
I just see the future that she's gonna have more and more work pertaining to subdivisions and all those types of things, and so she's definitely gonna be needing some help there.
Yeah, I think so too.
So that's the part we don't know yet, right?
How much?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, and I think to start, she's at 0 right now. To take her up to a shared administrative assistant, you know, it's ideally maybe 20. Janaea right now is also part-time, but she juggles between vastly different departments. I think if we had one administrative assistant for just those two very closely linked departments, I think it would be more efficient. I think the work that that person could give both departments would essentially be more than 20 each. And Nicole and Sean work very well together. If we decided to go the route of hiring a sanitarian, that would be an expectation that they work very well together And if they didn't, I would see that we would pick one